Everyone, I'll reopen or restart the meeting. We have item 9, which is the Asset Management Improvement Programme Report, 6-monthly update. Piers, you're going to give us an overview of this?
Lightning. So I'll take the report as read and then I'll open it up for about 4 points that I'd like to highlight and then out to questions, I guess. So as we have in the past, we've given you an update really around the operational aspects of what's going on around asset management improvement. And I guess for my particular team, and after the Fit for Future process, we formed a team. We've looked at the asset management capability of the organisation. We conducted the maturity assessment report, both of which have come through to council at each stage. That gave us an initial indication of where the opportunities were to improve the activity or the function of asset management and what that actually means. So as we've gone through that, we're constantly looking at what the demands are and learning more about how the organisation works, and that's triggered a restructure. That restructure really has been born through a couple of different mechanisms. The main one was to formalise the activities that were beginning to happen anyway and change roles and responsibilities. So, that's gone through. We've got 2 more headcount to bring on board, specialists within the data and information management space. I believe that Council's had a number of reports focusing on asset data and quality of that data or lack thereof. And that's, we're focusing and continue to focus on that as well. I guess the second point highlight is obviously the report indicates the programme and what the programme is actually about. There's a lot of detail within that. I appreciate that. I think really the point to take from that level of detail is that there are a lot of things that are going on at multiple different levels within the organisation across all the 4 main asset areas within that group. And as a result of our restructure, the focus on that information and system capability that we have, you are obviously aware of the improvements to SAP and that system in and of itself. That work that's been ongoing, that's core to the way that we build an LTP and deliver an investment programme to our communities. And whilst asset management in and of itself is not the most exciting thing, I believe that our LTP and getting the right LTP and confidence that it's the right LTP based on the data and information that you have and that the teams build is probably the most fundamental aspect that we have for our council. So I'm reasonably passionate, or as passionate as I can be, about the subject. The third aspect that you'll see from the report really begins to focus on the complete review and restructuring of the way that we deliver an LTP through our AMPs, the Strategic Asset Management Plan, which is really the strategy for the way that we manage our assets and our infrastructure strategy. Now, whilst we got over the line with our LTP, there's still lots of room for improvement in that space. And so we've already kicked that project off. And that particular project around the AMP, SAMP and infrastructure strategy enables us to look at a much more strategic level at the issues that we're facing, whether it is the issues that we've just been talking about previously. And last but by no means least in that, I'm going to highlight a particular project, and it comes on the back of attachment B, I think it was. So attachment B gives you an indication of the way that we report through at the various different levels of government and provide visibility through to ELT. Top left-hand side of that is a project which says Three Waters Asset Assessment Intervention Framework. Well, it probably doesn't mean a lot to you as it stands, but that intervention framework builds on national level capability around the way that we build our investment programs in the Three Waters space. So you've heard over the months the investment opportunity and the challenges that we face in the Three Waters area. If we're bringing better capability in the asset management space to that investment planning activity, what does that actually mean to council? Well, the indications in that project, which hasn't finished yet, and it's been underway for probably about 18 months, we're looking at about up to a $500 million reprofile within wastewater. Now that's just the technical details that go on in that, and allowing the teams to become less risk adverse. I mean, engineers are typically extremely risk-adverse individuals. And without the right information and without confidence in the methodologies or the improvement to the methodologies, they will, by natural behaviour, they will take a more risk-adverse stance on the renewals profiles. And so we're giving them the capability in that one area alone to take a more risky approach to the way that they replace the assets. And that has a huge impact financially for our council. And it's not just in Three Waters. We replicate that out into the facility space and the work that's been done through there. So realistically, the 6 months that we've been going through, that project alone is delivering a huge step in our capability. And more importantly, for my team and for the team involved, the project team, we're getting a lot of recognition within Australia and abroad as to the capability. We're leading in this space. We're the ones that Australian Defence Force are coming, Department of Conservation are coming, knocking on the door going, we see what you're doing, how have you actually managed to achieve this? Because we haven't been able to do this to date. So I'm with all the detail that goes into that project, I'm extremely proud of the work that's been accomplished to date. So, I mean, that's really the 4 points that I wanted to raise in that. So I really open up to any questions that you have.
Well, thanks, Piers. I mean, clearly you've made huge progress from where we started a few years ago, so well done. In terms of the next LTP, I mean, having good data is just crucial to make the right decisions. And I mean, something I'd like you to think about is not just you having the data, but the ability to present that data to the public so that they can understand what decisions we're making, but they can also feed in to that decision-making process, whereas we tend to just go to them and say, we're doing X, what's your feedback? As opposed to actually, here's the data, where do you think we should be focusing our spend? You know, what are the priorities for the public?
Yep. I mean, there's an interesting concept around the open data initiatives, and we're certainly, with the hackathons that you've probably heard about, you know, this is a logical next progression into allowing communities much closer engagement, because there's some pretty clever people out there that may be able to bring a different viewpoint if they have access to that data. But the first step for us, really, I refer to as we're in the hygiene space. We're about fixing up the issues that we've got internally. Once we understand how to use that data, that's the point where we can start reflecting it out to our communities.
That's good. I mean, we talk about it a lot, but it's good to hear that is actually possible.
Absolutely, yeah.
Dion?
Yeah, thanks for raising that, Raf, because it was the one question that I was wanting to ask. But just to finish up on that, how far away do you think that kind of thing may be for the council? Because I'm really keen to make sure that we, keen to see that happen. How far away do you think it might be before we're in that space?
So you're talking about being able to reflect or opening up our data to the communities?
Yes, yeah. And getting that open, that true open source.
Yeah. So the program, if you go back, within the report, there's a building block diagram, as we refer to it, and that's really about a six-year space. I think realistically, we're looking in the next couple of years, we should be able to start addressing that problem. Certainly the teams they're risk adverse around reflecting data and information out to our communities, because the definition of who owns that data and who makes the decision, and then more importantly, who takes the responsibility if inappropriate information is actually released, is actually quite a challenging space. And the team, as part of that information and system space, is actually beginning to exert ownership of that information and who makes the decision in that space.
Yes, I mean, the data ownership thing, I think, is quite an interesting conversation. Yep. I think we should probably actually go a little bit more in depth with that. Is there anything more that you need from us to make this work for you? Sorry, I'm really quite keen to make this happen. I know money, but I mean, is there any blocks? I mean, is there any roadblocks? I mean,
I think that the main challenge that we face is always about resource and capability, new ways of thinking, particularly when those teams are managing their own business and they're under a lot of pressure to manage that business. It does fundamentally come down to the capacity of the teams to engage. I mean, as my team has changed, adapted, and filled in the gaps resource-wise, we're now coming up against the blocks So getting that AAIF project, that intervention framework project, has been one of our higher level or higher priority projects. But interestingly enough, the ability for the three water team to have enough capacity to engage, we had to come up with some quite innovative mechanisms to allow that project to do what it needed to do. So, for instance, we took some of the internal specialists out of the team and we backfilled in with other capability. Typically, we'd bring a consultant in to do this piece of work to us, and then that causes challenges in the adoption within the team. So we actually reversed that. We took the specialists out internally, ring-fenced them, and said, right, you're working on this, and we're now beginning to get the benefits from that, and allow effectively the contractor just to work in the business. So it always comes down to resource and capacity and dollars and cents at the end of the day. Yeah.
Cool.
But support, sorry, Raf.
Yeah.
Support from this council is very important as well. It raises visibility to people go, oh, it's just asset management. It isn't. It's a fundamental cornerstone for the way that we build our LTP.
Yes, it is, exactly. So,
Yeah.
support, absolutely.
Support, well, you've got support.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for the work that you're doing, and it's nice to hear that, you know, internationally it's been recognised and people are looking to it. I just sort of wanted to pick up on the theme of making this publicly available. If I look at page 70, for example, just on the transport, you've got asset condition and performance monitoring where the transport staff can easily access single sources of information. And obviously, as we're going through the annual plan, we've had so many people come in and they've said, you know, our streets are really bad, they're not being fixed. But how can we get, like, how close are we, just take transport for example, to having a map where people can click on streets and see the condition?
What's happening.
Yeah, like, I mean, how much of this information on page 70 could be easily accessed by the public and when?
Yeah, so there's one of the things that we secured from Lens late last year was, and I did present to council about 18 months ago, a platform called the ForwardWorks Viewer. And so the ForwardWorks Viewer was one of the pieces of capability that SCIRT developed in conjunction with Sarah at the time to visualise programmes of work temporally or on a timeline. And so working with Lens and integrating our capital programme system internally and joining that up, two things happened. One, Lens handed the system over to us along with funding, so we secured almost $600,000 of funding. And so they handed the system over with money. We have that integrated with our capital programme system. The challenge that we face now really comes down to ensuring that the information's entered into our capital programme system, so there's a lot of operational stuff, so that can be reflected out and make that public. And that work is actually underway at the moment. I've actually got a meeting on Friday, and we're bringing Wellington City Council and, for instance, Auckland Transport, Auckland Council are interested in it as well, because they want to load their capital programmes in so that their communities can see what's happening, where it's happening, and when it's happening.
Right. So the idea that you could register your address and then get a kind of link of the capital works that are proposed and the condition of roads that you were interested in, that's something that would be doable.
Technically, yes. Is it on the horizon right now? No, but that's really up for debate around where the development comes in. I think that right now what I want to be able to provide is what I would refer to as spatial or a map representation of how your capital programs are progressing, you know, as a function of your ward and as a function of the city, for instance. So you can just go in there and have a look at the specific high-level project details. And there has been some static work done in the meantime to do that.
I guess what I was trying to really understand, though, is, like, we get the people that complain about streets that they know about, that they are interested in.
Yeah.
But sometimes those streets actually aren't on our capital program. They're actually not a priority, or they're not.
Yep.
They don't rank high enough up on our asset management
Capability.
systems.
Yep.
So the people get no visibility of the thing that they're interested in because it's not a project.
Yep.
So they can see the ones that are projects, but it doesn't help them understanding why their particular street or their playground isn't, you know, what condition that's in and where it sits within that big list of assets.
Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying, and I think it's an interesting point. Was we've been focused on being able to provide councillors visibility at that level where appropriate. I guess the next logical step, which follows on from previously, is that opening that data up to the communities, and what does that actually mean? And I know there's been some discussion, and Jed Clink and Dave Adamson have both talked a little bit around access to the what does that mean for the capital programme visibility. So I'll certainly take that and have that conversation as well on Friday.
Thank you. And just the final question was on that same page, the transport B2B completion. I'm not quite sure what B2B.
All right, so B2B stands for business to business.
Right, business to business.
Yeah.
So I really was quite, like my eyes lit up when I saw 4 new dashboards, and especially potholes. And so just having a dashboard on our website that says, we've got 1,000 pothole requests, here's our progress, or here's what's happening. When are we likely to be able to get any sort of high-level dashboard information to show the public, I guess, the demands on our services and how we're responding?
Okay, so there's a maturity curve here that we need to be aware of. When we talk about B2B or business to business, that's really an operational level management platform at the moment. So we have, as part of the transport maintenance procurement process that went through, part of where my team supported transport was to provide capability of information coming in from the 3 main contractors in the city, and then measuring their performance against a set of KPIs within that space. The dashboards that we talk about here are providing at an operational level how those KPIs are being met. Once again, on that maturity curve, we go from a B2B, a business to business. As we improve the maturity and we go into open data, we then start talking about something called C2C, which is client or customer to contractor. This is where I may phone up and that there's a pothole that gets passed directly through to the contractor. Council don't really need to get involved in it. It goes straight through. There's do not pass go, just get on with the work. And then the metrics get reported back through to the customer. And there's a maturity scale here. We're not there yet, and it goes through to how do we reflect information and data as it's coming in, and we are moving in that direction, but it's still a ways away.
Lovely. Any other questions? Dave, you wanted to make a comment?
Just quickly, in answer to one of Councillor Johansson's questions, there is the road and footpath recycling map, resurfacing map that's on the website, where you can put an address, and you will see that. Admittedly, it's only got the next 3 years program on it, but it will give you when we're going to resurface, and for both footpaths and pavement, and so people can put their address in there, and the map will zoom in to their property. So I'm not sure how well, I know some of the councillors know about it, but again, the further we let that out, that's available for all the public, so it does give some information on the projects that do affect them immediately.
Yep.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, look, thanks, Piers. I mean, I think there's, obviously a lot of support for this, because actually what you're doing is not just enabling us to make better decisions, but hopefully eventually this is where the public will engage with the council.
Yep.
I mean, that is the reality. Now, we've talked about open data for 3 or 4 years, and it hasn't really happened. I would certainly, looking at your schedule, be targeting the LTP in 2021 to produce something that you can go to the public with. It just, it's a bit like the weather forecast. When you tell people it's going to rain, they'll get an anorak or an umbrella. They'll still moan about it, but they're not going to get wet. If you give people information, they may not always like it, but they like the fact that they have the information and that they can make some choices around that.
Yep.
And we don't have that level of interaction yet. And so we're in this kind of phase from very old 20th century systems of local government to where there's huge demand for information about what is happening. And we're between different forms of media, and it's quite tricky. So the public is generally dissatisfied at information they're not getting. But if we can tell them this is the way we're going to start doing things and engage them before we make decisions about things, then they can have input into that. And that, I believe, will come through an open data system. Okay, so thank you for that. We have a resolution to receive those reports. You seconded it? I'm happy to move. Seconded Dion. Any debate? I'll put the motion. All in favour say aye. Aye.